Hey guys, and welcome to Chapter 7, England Explores and Colonizes. So we're going to be talking about the colonization of the Americas today, okay? So, John Cabot, the big question is how did European exploration of the Americas lead to settlement and colonization? So, John Cabot. In 1490, Giovanni Caboto moved his family from Venice to Spain. Years of experience as a Venetian spice trader had made Caboto an expert seaman. Now he was caught up in the spirits of exploration. Caboto wanted to form an expedition in search of a northwesterly route to the Spice Islands. Unfortunately, the monarch of both Portugal and Spain had other plans. The Portuguese had established their own route to the east, around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. When Christopher Columbus returned from his voyage, the Spanish believed that they had found another route. No one wanted to hear Caboto's proposal for still another route. Caboto moved his family to the port city of Bristol, England. There, Giovanni Caboto changed his name to John Cabot. The English monarchy, Henry V, and the merchants of Bristol were happy to give the explorer their support. They hoped he would bring them great wealth. After a failed first attempt in 1496, John Cabot set sail again in 1497. He sailed under an English flag with only one ship and a crew of 18. The ship crossed the North Atlantic. After 5 weeks of travel, the crew spotted what they called Newfound Land. You may have learned about this area when we studied Vikings in the colony they called Vinland. Cabot believed that he had found an island off the coast of Asia. He returned to England to report his findings. The sailors did not have any spices or silks to show for their journey, but they were able to describe scooping fish out of the waters in baskets. The voyage was judged a success, and another trip was planned for the following year. So here's a picture of the sailors. You can see that they are pulling fish out of the sea using just baskets, okay? They're not having to cast a line or set out a big net. They can just do it with baskets. The next time Cabot set sail, he had a fleet of 5 ships. One of his ships returned to Bristol after a storm. Cabot and the other four ships were never seen again. To this day, nobody knows for certain what happened to them. The Northwest Passage. John Cabot was one of the first explorers to seek this Northwest Passage to the Indies. He was not the last. Cabot's son, Sebastian, followed his father's footsteps, as did many other explorers. For many years, all of these explorers were frustrated in their attempts. Those who went south found a continuous band of land blocking their way, the eastern coast of North America. Explorers who went further north were literally stopped cold, their passages prevented by ice in the water. The further north explorers went, the fewer goods they could find to bring back home. Northern explorers generally had almost nothing to show for their efforts. Even though the explorers failed to find a northwesterly shortcut to the Indies, their attempts did have some helpful results. Explorers looking for the passage made maps of the coasts of North America, and thus the stage of colonization of the continent. Sir Francis Drake. Once the age of exploration was underway, the seas were crowded with European ships carrying valuable materials. Adventurous men could make lots of money as pirates. Indeed, one of the greatest English explorers made his name as a pirate, robbing the Spanish and Portuguese ships and presenting the treasures to Queen Elizabeth. His name was Francis Drake, and he became one of the greatest sea captains in history. So you can think of pirates kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean. During his early years on the ocean, Drake's ship was attacked and robbed by Spanish ships. Drake never forgot these attacks. He spent much of his adult life seeking revenge on the Spaniards. As Drake crisscrossed the Atlantic, he took every opportunity to loot Spanish trade ships located with spices and silver. He also led raids on Spanish ports to the Americas. So just quickly, to loot means to steal or take something by force. You can see a picture here of Sir Francis Francis Drake kneeling before Queen Elizabeth, and he used his pirate skills in order to serve her, okay? In 1577, Drake convinced a group of people to invest in one of his voyages. He set out with a fleet of 5 ships with 164 crewmen. At first, the voyage seemed to be nothing more than one of Drake's usual raid parties. Instead, Drake followed Magellan's example by embarking on a journey around the world. Drake surprised his crew by plundering a Portuguese ship and taking not only several sacks of silver, but also an experienced Portuguese pilot. This hostage guided Drake's fleet on the journey across the Atlantic. Drake's fleet crossed from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean through the Strait of Magellan. Drake observed the southerly area that Magellan had called the Terra del Fuego, or Land of Fire. Magellan named it for the campfires burning in native villages along the shore. Drake noted that this area also was an archipelago rather than part of the continent. This observation would lead future navigators to open sea around Cape Horn, the southern tip of South America. So remember, an archipelago is a chain of islands. I will post a picture of where Magellan's strait is so you can see, and it shows that it's a whole bunch of islands, okay? This observation, just kidding, keep going. By the time the expedition reached the west coast of South America, Drake had only 58 men and 1 ship left. The ship was the Gold Hind. As the Gold Hind moved up the coast of what was now Chile and Peru, Drake captured ships and raided ports. In Peru, Drake sailed into a harbor crowded with Spanish ships and proceeded to rob each ship of its treasure. He learned that a ship loaded with gold and silver had just left port a few days earlier. The ship also had many powerful guns. Drake and his Golden Hind raced up the coast after the heavy and slow-moving Spanish treasure ship. When he saw it, he hung water barrels off the back of his ship to make the Golden Hind look like a merchant ship. When he got close, he cut loose the barrels and pulled up next to the Spanish ship. Drake's trained sailors jumped aboard the treasure ship and cut the Spanish crew, throwing many of them overboard. Then they looted the ship of its treasures and set it on fire. So you can see a picture here. He is looking at the ship. This is a ship he's going after because it has a bunch of gold and silver and powerful guns, and he wants that. Not surprisingly, Spain was very angry about Sir Francis Drake's actions. Drake might have been a hero in England, but to the Spanish, he was nothing but a pirate. The Spanish ambassador is said to have called him the master thief of the unknown world. The Spanish demanded that Queen Elizabeth return the stolen treasures and have Drake hanged. She refused. Spain considered itself the strongest naval power in the world. Its rulers resented the attacks by English pirates and England's involvement in the Spanish affairs. It put together an armada of ships loaded with heavy cannons and soldiers. In 1588, the Armada set sail to invade England and overthrow Queen Elizabeth. So an armada is a large fleet of ships. The English knew they could not fight the huge Spanish fleet as a unit. So Drake and other English sea captains used imaginative battle tactics. They set up small ships on fire and sent them into the Spanish battle formation. The Spanish, afraid that the small ships were loaded with gunpowder, broke formation. The English had smaller, more mobile ships. They used these ships to gang up on the lumbering Spanish battleships, sinking many. As the Spanish ships retreated, the storm sank still more of the armada. In the end, only about half of the armada's more than 130 ships returned safely to Spain. So you can see a picture here of a ship battle. One ship is on fire. England had won a great victory. The defeat of the Spanish Armada also marked a change in balance of sea power. The 1500s had belonged to Spain. Over the next 2 centuries, English ships would come to rule the seas, building colonies. In the 1500s, Spain conquered Mexico and Central and South America. The Spanish accumulated a great fortune in gold and silver from the American colonies. Indeed, the main purpose of the many Spanish colonies was to find gold and silver and send these precious metals back to Spain. The English were also interested in acquiring wealth. They preferred to do so by setting up permanent settlements. They wanted colonies where people could farm, fish, cut lumber, and harvest the other resources in the area. Building colonial settlements was expensive. The English king and queens did not want to spend the money. Instead, they gave grants of land to well-to-do people for businesses called joint stock companies to build the colonies. So joint stock companies is a company that raises money by selling shares or interests in a company in the form of stock. In 1585, Sir Walter Raleigh established the first English colony in North America. Raleigh sent a group of men to Roanoke Island off the coast of modern-day North Carolina. Unfortunately, Raleigh's colonists grew discouraged and they returned to England. In 1587, Raleigh sent a second group to the island. This time, women and children traveled with the men. He hoped that the community of families would stay there. The colony got off to a good start. A baby girl, Virginia Dare, was the first English child born in the land that would become the United States. But in 1590, a supply ship reached the colony and found that everyone had disappeared without a trace. All that left was one word carved into a tree. The colony that Raleigh found is remembered as the Lost Colony. So here's a drawing or a painting of what was left of the Lost Colony. So some trees, the wall, and then a building. In 1607, a joint stock company called the London Company settled a colony at Jamestown, Virginia. Jamestown was the first permanent English settlement in North America. At first, the colony struggled. Then, the Potawatomi Confederacy, Native American indigenous to the area, came to the colony's rescue. The Confederacy was made up of about 30 Native American groups that shared the same language, called, and I don't know how to pronounce this, so please forgive me, called Algonquian. It was named for the chief who governed it. Members of the Potawatomi Confederacy taught the colonists how to grow tobacco, a crop that the North Americans and unknown to Europe. Growing tobacco was a big success. Tobacco quickly became a cash crop for the colonists. In the 1620s, the Pilgrims settled at Plymouth. These colonists wanted religious freedom. 10 years later, the Puritans formed the Massachusetts Bay Company and settled in Boston. During the 1600s, the English settled on land along most of the Atlantic coast. This land belongs to various Native American groups who were often forced to find new places to live. The English also built colonies on islands in the West Indies and the Caribbean Sea. These English colonies survived and prospered. By 1700, English colonies stretched from the fisheries of Newfoundland to the sugar plantations of the Caribbean. These colonies were built on strong trade connections. They became home to people who were looking for wealth, religious freedom, and unlimited opportunities for themselves and their children. Pursuing the spices. England successfully built colonies in North America, but it did not forget about the rest of the world. It also competed for the share of the spice trade in Asia. England's East India Company decided that traveling all the way to the Spice Islands from England was too dangerous and too expensive. The company directors chose to base their operations in India. Before long, the East India Company had settles in India cities as Surat, Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta. The company was also given the authority to raise an army. It was only a matter of time before the English expanded their holdings in India and started permanent trading posts there. All right, that is it for that lesson. Make sure you jump on to Chapter 8 when you're ready. Make sure you fill out your notes. I will post what your notes should be looking like, and that will be it for today. Have a great rest of your day.